Right. So hello and welcome everyone. I'm Meeta Lalwani. I'm the product manager for TrueSight Network Automation and Data Warehouse. And I have Sumeet Hemnani with me, who is our technical marketing expert. All right. So we have a lot to cover over here. So just to give you an overview, there are going to be two separate sessions. This is the overview session for the new solution, which is a replacement for older solution called BMC Decision Support for Network Automation, which was a reporting component for network automation. This has been announced end of life last year and has been replaced with a new solution called TrueSight Network Automation Reporting Solution. So we are going to talk about the overview, the architecture, what's difference between BDSNA and the solution, how do you set up. Sumeet is going to take us through the live demo and few important links. There is going to be another session, I think in the next week, where we are going to have a detailed discussion of how do we write the custom reports. So this reporting solution is a solution which has two components in it. The first part is the data warehouse, which is basically an ETL engine. So the data which is part of TrueSight Network Automation core server can be extracted to the data warehouse. The data could be more than one site. So if you have two sites, one is for testing and one is for production, or if you have two different sites, one for Australia and another one for USA, you can still have a single pane of glass from reporting perspective. So this is basically the platform where you can extract all the data to a single platform. And then there's another component called TrueSight Smart Reporting, which is a console to view all kind of reports, which you can customize as well. So this TrueSight Smart Reporting platform is going to be a common platform for most of the BMC products. So the first platform which was supported was TrueSight Server Automation, and the next one is Network Automation. You will see more and more products being onboarded to this platform so that you don't have to manage multiple smart reporting platforms if you are using more than one BMC product. So here is the architecture of the TrueSight Network Automation. What we are saying essentially is if you have multiple databases, still you want to have a single platform for viewing the report, you should be able to do that. From Data Warehouse, you should be able to view the reports right from there, and internally it cross-launches the Smart Reporting platform. So TrueSight Smart Reporting internally has a Yellowfin component in it, but if you don't want to use Yellowfin, we have provided the open schema as well, and then TrueSight Smart Reporting component becomes optional for you, where we give out-of-the-box views and reports. But if you just need the data warehouse and not the reports or views out of the box, then you can use your own engine, which you can use for reporting. So here the first component which was added was server, the next component which has been added is a network, and the single system is going to support all this kind of reporting systems. So most of the reports, which are the core reports for BDSNA and were supported in the past, the support for all those reports has been added in this release. Few reports such as KPI, dashboard, and regulatory are not part of this release. The release which we are talking about is a 19.1 release for TrueSight Network Automation Data Warehouse. The next release, which is going to be 20.02, is going to have the feature parity between the BDSNA and the Smart Reporting solution, which is the newer one. But any of these reports which you think are using, which you're using in your environment and you think we should be picking up at priority, like device status and change frequency is one of the reports which our customer told us that they are using. You can certainly mention that in the chat window, or you can tell us by sending us an email, and we'll prioritize that report over others. Along with the replacement of the technology, which was instead of using SAP BO, we have started using Yellowfin. The other major change that we have done is we have replaced the Oracle ODI, which was being used for extracting the data. Now it has been replaced with a Java-based code, and it has helped us in improving the performance of the system. So if you see over here, you will see that the amount of time which was spent on extracting the information has been significantly reduced compared to what it used to take earlier. So if you see that the time for 20,000 devices for ETL used to happen for 18 minutes it used to run, and it takes hardly 10 seconds now if you have 25,000 devices in your environment. And the data is consistent for more number of devices as well. So here are the steps. If you don't have a BDSNA environment existing in your environment, you want to deploy the smart reporting as a new component. The first step which you'll do is you'll upgrade TSNA to 8.9.0 for patch 3. And the reason we had to do it is because we have introduced a new APIs to support this, which are introduced as part of patch 3. So we need to upgrade TSNA to 8.9.03, and then the next step would be installing this data warehouse. Once the data warehouse has been installed, the next step would be extracting the information, the data from TSNA, and execute that step. Once your data warehouse is completely set up, the next step would be to start with smart reporting. So you'll install the smart reporting component for Yellowfin, and you will register TSNADW, which is the data warehouse for network automation, as a component to TSSR. And there you would be able to see the views and reports, and we are going to have the demo of all this, not installation, but how do you configure and how do you look at the reports. This Sumeet is going to show us in a couple of minutes from now. If you're an existing customer, but you would like to migrate to TSNADW because BDSNA is end of life, and February 2020 would be the actual end of life date for BDSNA, and we request everyone to migrate to the newer platform by then, so that there's no dependency on the third-party system, which is SAP BO then. So the steps more or less remain similar, except that you have to disable the ETL on the BDSNA, and the reason for that is because you can't run ETL from two different systems. If you do that, the data in the data warehouse will get corrupted. So you have to disable the ETL, purge, and URG mapper systems, and then rest of the steps remain same. And it has been detailed. There is a detailed documentation available for that as well. But the important thing is make sure that we disable ETL so that the data into data warehouse is not corrupted. And once you have installed the smart reporting component, you can in parallel view the results of SAP BO as well as Yellowfin and see the data is consistent or not. Once the testing is completed, you can uninstall SAP Business Object, which was the previous report viewer. And the last step would be delete master and work databases, and this is needed because we are not using Oracle ODI anymore, so you don't need this databases anymore. So we'll move to the demo quickly. So we are going to have two demos. So the first demo is about once the installation is done, what are the post-installation configuration steps and how do you write a customized report, including the dynamic fields. And then there is going to be a part 2 of demo. So before I hand it over to Sumeet, any questions on the slide which we discussed? All right.
We are not we're not showing any questions yet in the chat window.
Okay.
Thank you. Meeta, can you make me the presenter so I can start?
Yeah.
I just made you presenter to me.
Yeah.
I did it.
Thank you, Meeta. Thank you, sir. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you everyone for attending this call. I'm going to start with how to configure post-installation steps for smart reporting for network automation. These steps are a bit important because they show you how differently it works within the system. So we need to understand the differences between business objects and Yellowfin. And part of it is because it's some of the requirements that are needed. This is only a one-time step, so upgrades, upgrades, it will be much more easier. With this, I'll just get started. So the first thing over here is to try to put in a component. So when you install smart reporting and when you install the data warehouse, you would actually see the screen wherein the component is not yet added into the system. One of the things that we are trying to do here is try to make this as a single solution for reporting. We already have server automation here. The next component is network automation. And in the future, we are going to have more components also inside this. So the first thing first is to, wherever you've installed the data warehouse, you have to put in the IP address of that server. This can be a different, a different location, a different server, or it can be installed on the same server. So for me, it's on the same server, but I'll put in the IP address. So 192.168.100.85. The HTTPS protocol, the port number, default is 9443, and you can have something else as well. So depending on what you do during the install. The user that you're going to be using is DW Network Admin. This is the specific user that will be created during install, and you'll be asked for the password. So when you create the login and password during the install, just make sure you save that information so that we can use it over here. And all you have to do is save. So once this happened, this component started adding inside this. So why did we make it this way? One of the reasons we made it this way is because we wanted to separate out the smart reporting component and the warehouse component. The thing over here is that if in case the warehouse gets upgraded and the smart reporting is not upgraded, in the future you'll have much more easier way to just upgrade the warehouse and import the files from here directly rather than upgrading the entire smart reporting solution. Because smart reporting might have multiple components, there might be multiple databases, so you need to be careful on what you're doing. So in this case, we've separated out the data warehouse component and the smart reporting component so that you have two components and you can work easily. And with this, it is going to automatically create all these things and keep you as connected. This means that it has loaded all the reports, loaded all the views, and put in everything that it needs to in the smart reporting configuration. Now, after doing an ad with this, there are some additional things. There is also some smart reporting work that you need to do, which is for doing some administrative tasks. Now, the previous user was a data warehouse user, which is the admin when you created it during install. This particular user is a special Yellowfin administrator user, which you need to log into the system. And it is admin, and the password is admin12345. You will see this information when you log in the first time, and when you install, you will see that information in the installer itself, and it will show up. By default, it is admin12345. You can change the password, but it will show up as you will not get a chance to change the password during installation. All you have to go is go to the administration console, and one of the things you need to do is give rights. So you have to give rights to this particular user to access the system. Right now, the TrueSight administrator can only access the default client organization, but you have to give it rights for it to access the other organizations like the network automation data warehouse or any other data warehouse that is there. So the default user that's there is a system administrator. You have to add that user and click Save. Once you do this, you will have to log out And when you try to log in again, from this UI, and go to the admin console, you will actually see a multi-tenant login. So you can now select which tenant you want to log in into. This is very important because one of the things we do here is configure for new users. So whenever you have a new user that is being added into the into your reporting solution through TSNA, you would want that user to populate over here, and you would also want filters to be populated here. So some of these things are to refresh the filters and configure the users as well. So right now I'm going to configure the users for you. So go to the data warehouse, configuration, access filters, usernames, and new user auto refresh. All I have to do is turn this on. Submit and save. Now, there are also other things that you can do here. There is a setup for content settings. Now, these settings are to, how the layout comes up and how the style looks like. So one of the things that we're going to change is the layout. We want the filter location not on the left, but on the left side navigation bar so that the filter location comes properly. And the other thing that we are going to change is going to be how the rows are going to alternate. So these are some things that cannot be done during the installation. So this is something you'll need to do manually. So if you want the row shading to be alternate during your reports, then you'll need to do that. And if you want a highlight, then you'll need to select a highlight for the reporting as well. So if you're highlighting a row, it will show up as a highlighted, and that you can do. Okay. With this, I've completed the post-installation step. So it's not a long process. It's just a few things that you need to do for it to work properly. And now I'll just switch into another environment which has everything configured and running. So bear with me for a second. This would be your user. You can log in from this user and so as you can see, you can log in through your sysadministrator user. You can go into the administration, you can go into the different reports that are there, go into the report section and view all the reports that are available. We've also created folders similar to what we had for smart reporting. We can go into inventory reports. We can have a look at inventory reports. We can either go into a summary and we need to select a filter. So we can select filters from here and do TSNA. So we can actually see that, which site we've selected. You can have multiple sites integrated to it. You can see, a single report, or you can see by realm, by device type, by vendor. So you've got different information which you can see in these reports. Now, these reports are exactly the same as we had in the previous, so there are no real changes into the system. The other thing that I wanted to show you, which will help you during customization, is ability to add and export information from TSNA to the TSNADW. So if you log into TSNA, you will have things like additional dynamic fields which you might want to export. Yeah, so you might have created some dynamic fields that you may want to export from one system to the other. So you will go to the dynamic fields, and once you see, maybe an asset tag you want to export, that is one thing that you need to export. So you would just click export to warehouse. Or in this case, we want to export whether it's CDP enabled or not. So all you have to do is click this export to warehouse, and you would actually see this information starting to go there. But if you want to show it up instantly, or you want to show it up in the system, you will have to run the ETL task, which takes a few seconds to finish, but you will have to run the ETL task and wait for the ETL to finish. So let's give it a couple of seconds. And then you will have to run the add dynamic property task. This is a special task which is created specifically for doing the ETL. The reason we created this task is because it just creates the view in the system. So the view is automatically updated with the new dynamic fields without you making any, any configurations or settings to configure the view. So we'll just have a look at this over here. So as we were on our system, we can see that, we saw the inventory report, which is here. We can go to the views down here in the system. Browse views. And for example, we'll go to the inventory view. So we can actually look at the view here, click on fields, and for the dynamic fields, you can actually see CDP enable got added at the bottom. So you just keep on adding more and more fields. We had a limitation in the previous product about having only 6 or 7 fields into the system, and customers wanted to use more dynamic fields for grouping or for getting more information from TSNA. So that functionality has been improved. And as far as reporting is concerned, you can actually go to the inventory reports. We can go to the inventory reports, and within the inventory report, for example, if I want to, edit this report, so I can just go and edit this report, and I want to add whether it's CDP is enabled or I want to find an ID, you can directly go into the device dynamic field, and you can just push this information here. What is the entity ID for this device? And what is the CDP-enabled system of this device? Now, one advantage that Yellowfin gives us over business objects is when you try to create a report, you can actually see the report without any issues. So it'll be like you can do a live, check whether the report is working or not. So you can see a live data. So as soon as you add a field into a report, it is going to add the live data into it as well. So for example, I want to add this field, so you just update the data. So this gives you an idea of how the report would look like. And then you can, swap things around anyway. So that's what I had for the first demo. I will hand it over back to Meeta, and she'll go through the presentation, and then we'll come back for another demo.
Said request you to please make me present again. Thanks.
Yes, Meeta, you're the presenter.
Sure. All right, let's move ahead. So like Sumeet mentioned, this is a new schedule to add the dynamic fields in the Yellowfin. And so if you want to run the ETL manually, there is a command which you can execute to do it. In production, when you have tested it and everything is working fine, it would be a Windows scheduler which will be running your ETLs based on the schedule which you have defined. Most probably once every night, once in 24 hours is when you will be running it. So here on the new data warehouse user interface, you can also see the status of the ETL. You can also change the password of DataWare network admin users, and you can filter the data by site name, and you can also drill down. In future, you will also see that you should be able to execute the ETLs right from here. So if you want to add more sites to the site manager, there's an interface for doing that. There's a batch script which you would execute, and it will ask you for the site information. And once it is provided, the sites will be added successfully. And the reason why you would be doing it is because if you are managing multiple sites, you would have a single system where you can extract this data. In that case, you will be adding more sites to the system. If you're using BDSN as a multi-site component, what you'll do is you will also update your secondary TSNA sites to patch 3 as well. And you will also update the database details using the site manager utility. And that is all you would be doing for migration and the ETLs basically. So that was the brief information, and we will focus more on the demo and regarding how do you configure the users, how do you schedule a report, and how do you broadcast a report. Stop presenting, and Sumeet, I think you should be able to present.
Meeta, you'll have to transfer the presentation role.
Just it.
Thank you. No, for some reason it went back.
My fault. It's coming back.
Let me share my screen. So one of the things about this, because it is a new solution, so we wanted to make sure that we had some basic things covered. One of the basic things that we needed for this solution was to add new report admins or different type of report users into the system. So we've got this all defined in the documentation, but we still wanted to show you an idea, give you an idea of how to add new users into the system. And the other thing is how to schedule reports, email reports, export reports, and do a couple of things with the reports which you see in the new UI. So first things first, how to add a new user into the system. So you can actually create a user in TSNA. So like I'll create a user Meeta. And I will say meeta@tmc.com, any email address which is a required component. Password cannot be expired. And Lalwani. So I can set this configuration up and I can save it. And I'll need to put in a role. So I'll put in as an administrator for TSNA, but you have multiple roles that you can assign. You can have a report administrator, a report author, a designer, and a viewer. Report admin will give it the same rights as sysadmin. So sysadmin has most of the report administrative rights here. So you can add the report administrative rights here and save. This user is ready, but it will not work. It will not work because the ETL hasn't run. So either you can force an ETL to run through the task scheduler, or you can wait for the ETL to run for this particular user to show up in the system. And it is as simple as that. So just a couple of steps, waiting for the ETL to finish. Just for this, I'll just run it once more. And going back to the screen, I can go here and log in with Meeta as my credentials. Oops. Sorry. Seems that here, let me get copied. Okay, I might have to wait for a few minutes here. Let me use another name for this, and I think the ETL didn't work for me at the present moment. So the other thing which we wanted to show you were the reports. And once we go to the reports, we can look at individual reports, go to the browse option, look at the inventory reports, or look at any change tracking reports that we have. We can open these reports up and look at the graphs. You can set filters. If you don't see a filter over here, there is a refresh button down here. Sorry. So you can select a site name And you can also select a time period for this report. And you can run this report and you will see the information. To export the reports out, there is an export button right here. You can export the reports to CSV, docs, PDF, text, or XLS format. You can also, you can also print the report as well. And then we can broadcast reports. Broadcast reports means you can send an email for a report. You can filter specific reports and send to some people. You can configure FTP schedules as well. So for sending emails, you can configure a broadcast. You can say, which user you want to send it to. So Alan is the user I want to send it to. And then whatever subject body you want to send, say test reports. You can send it to a continuous schedule, or you can send it a single report on a particular time. You can also make some changes, like what is the frequency, what's the time zone, and whether it is limited or whether you should send a failure notification as well. So all these things can be stored and submitted into the system, and it will be added. Now, one advantage which this particular solution gives is that you can put in custom filters, and you can put those filters within the report. So if you see over here, you can create a report, and then you can define the filters over here and select current filter values. So it will select those current filter values and only send that kind of a report. So for example, if you want to send a report to only Cisco specialists, so if you want to send it to the Juniper ones, you can create these multiple kinds of broadcasts and then set these things according to the values that need to be sent. So they would only get the reports that they are needed. And then you can also save this report if you want within the system. So there are different ways of saving this. So there are many different things, and there are many things we want to show inside this, but we've just covered the basics. We will have another webinar for custom reports, and we can also cover additional topics of whichever topics which you need that need to be covered inside this. And if you give me a few minutes, I'll hand it over to Meeta once we finish the presentation, and I'll recheck what's wrong with the ETL. Sorry, Meeta, handing over back to you.
All right. So towards the end of the session, we would like to talk about the key differentiators from the older solution to the new solution. The one important thing is we have replaced the SAP business object, which was a pain point for some of you. So it has been replaced with the yellowfin, and with the hope that this is better. And we have seen that in some of the areas, yellowfin is definitely better than SAP BO. And this is lighter compared to the older solution as well. The new thing which has been introduced is the open schema, which we just touched upon. And so if you don't want to use business object or SAP BO, you want to just use Tableau because that's your organization standard, and you have the people who can write the views for yourself or reports. You can definitely use open schemas if you need any guidance, we can help you for that. But since it is now available, you can definitely use it. The other thing which has been removed is the Oracle ODI, and how does it matter is to you is the performance improvements have been seen when we run the in-house ETL compared to the third-party system. And the one important thing and one of the annoying factor for BDSNA was the limited number of users as admin or any kind of users which can access BDSNA. That limit to the number of licenses, number of users has been removed basically. One other thing which has been done is removed a URG mapper. We don't need any URG mapper. And the reason for that is because now the users which are viewing the reports are the TSNA users, and TSNA needs to be up and running for viewing the reports, and the access which is there on TSNA is the access which is going to be provided on the data warehouse, and that's why the user roles groups mapping is not needed anymore. So these are the major changes which has been done in this release, and I think most of them are for betterment of the tool. And once you start using it, you can just give us the feedback and just let us know so that we can keep on improving on the stuff which we're doing. We also have plans of doing some of the options from the UI, for which currently we have the utilities in place. But eventually, with further releases, you will see more and more improvements into the tool. I'll open up now. Go ahead.
Yeah, we've got questions. Sorry if that's where you were headed. So Jeremy asks, since this is a new product with a new SKU, how do we get the SKU added to our license so we can move to the new tool?
Sure. So account managers just need to place a trigger for that. So yeah, account manager is the right person to do that, but existing customers can migrate to the new solution with zero cost migration.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Meeta, can you pass on the, do you have any more slides, or can you pass on the control to me?
Just one where we are showing the important links, and this tech I think is going to be shared on the community page as well. It is just for reference, so that if you hit any issue, and I'll pass on the control now.
Thank you. So Meeta, there was another question is that without getting the SKU added, they can't have EPD access, correct, right?
Data warehouse they can have, but not for
not for the smart reporting. Correct.
Yes.
Thank you. So, sorry, coming back to the demo, and I wanted to show that the user was actually working. So yes, the user does work, and I was able to work through it. The issue that I faced was that I was doing multiple ETL runs within an hour. So ETL runs can only be done within a space of an hour. That is the current limitation on the system. So I had done an ETL run for sending the dynamic fields, and I was doing another ETL run for sending the user. And because it was within 1 hour, the ETL wasn't running. So I had to make some changes for the ETL to run again. So there is a bit of a limitation on the system on when the ETL can be run. And one other thing to note inside this is if you have a user and you add a user inside network automation with an email address, that email address will not be carried forward into smart reporting. So you will have to use the smart reporting UI to actually add the email address again in smart reporting. As of now, it's not there. In the future, we're trying to see if we can get that information ported as well. So how would you add that particular email would be is log in through the admin for smart reporting. Right. Log into the admin for smart reporting. Go to the admin console. Administration console. You'll see the user right here, and then you will have Meeta here. So you can edit, and even the last claim doesn't come in. So that is another thing that you need to add. So update user. So now the email address has been added. So that is one step that you will need to do to get this done. And yeah, the ETL needs to be spaced. The ETL requires at least an hour before it can run again. Sorry, Meeta, back to you.
No, and the reason the way it was done was because we don't want the data in data warehouse to be corrupted by by if multiple ETLs are running in parallel, and that was the reason that was added. And if needed, we can enhance that if that's absolutely needed. Yeah, that's all. Any other question?
All right. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.